There is nothing stoic about tanky punches like a punching bag without. Welcome, boys. Mids Watch. Got a new one here. Guy is asking about needing help with fitness tests related to his kids. And it's just such a weird but common post where a lot of guys like think that they need to be super stoic by letting somebody just berate them and walk all over them. And I think that like the idea of frame, and they think that means to be non-reactive, which it absolutely isn't. But and again, it's mostly because these are the typical married red pill guys from years back. They make their one big post with a very specific problem. They get kind of embarrassed. They delete their stuff and run off, and you never see and hear from them again. Now, is it because it doesn't work? Which, no, usually the times when things didn't work, they come back and they basically give everybody a blast of shit, and we refine the process. And this is the point now where everybody kind of knows what they're doing. Usually what it is people's identity get hurt, and they don't like the idea of having a successful and happy relationship. What they like is they like that they're the victim, their wives are the bad guys, and it's not their fault. And they really are just coming and looking for a reinforcement of that identity, which is the weirdest martyr narcissism around. But you're better than that, and you're going to use this stuff to do better off in your relationships. So this guy took the journey into the red pill about a month ago. He's been married for 15 years, being the nice plow horse to his wife, hoping that the next thing he did for her would make her happy and everything would be great. He took on way more responsibilities than he should has. She's done a good job at shirking them and throwing them in his face while he's cleaning or doing dishes or whatever, about how she does so much more than him and how he forgets to do stuff, yada, yada, yada. Started with a cat that I got her. It's basically my cat now. The dogs are 100% mine, also. Sex is like once every 3 months. Then we have a kid. Of course, it's when she wanted it. It was sex every day. Then she got pregnant, and then she stopped. And lucky for him, he's fertile and happened in the first month, both kids, yippee. But then, since he fell back to sleep very easily, it became his duty to deal with him in the middle of the night, have a second kid. He's still dealing with that now. He had a bit of an awakening, a numbing of my marriage and being treated like the crap that I was. I was fat, out of shape, I was miserable. So, he cut out eating like a sob. He stopped drinking soda, started working out. He was numb to his wife's constant shit tests, and they weren't shit tests as an aside. They were just her disrespect and neuroticism that came out as anger. But he doesn't know that yet. So he was like a Days and Peter in the office when he was hypnotized. He's taken the red pill, but not knowing that he had nobody helping him to show him the way. He went numb to the world for about 2 weeks, had a trip out of town, and he'd been dreading. And going anywhere with this wife is a shit show, because apparently he never does a thing to pack. He doesn't get the kids ready to be out the door. It's always something with her. She's on high shit test alert when they're about to leave. He just ignores it and goes around prepping all this stuff that she's not going to appreciate anyway. Now, this is an informal wedding that I've taken an interest in photography, so he wants to take some pictures for them. Going in, his wife knew this and agreed she would take the kids. Got back to the hotel early, and he'd stay and finish taking pictures. But an old female friend of his grabbed him before she left and insisted that he stayed. She knew he was miserable, and she knew that my wife would get me to leave, and she wanted me to stay, get drunk, and have fun. So my wife left, and my friend started feeding me beer and moonshine. He says, yeah, that's the kind of wedding we were at. Fair. Anyways, had fun. If my eyes weren't open before, they were open now. He got to take some pictures, more pictures, some cool night shots, kept drinking, checks his phone. 3 missed calls from the wife. Now, this isn't uncommon. She's like a fun-seeking missile. A friend was here with me when I make the call. Where are you? Are you still taking pictures? That's ridiculous. The kids have been crying. I reminded her that she went to a 3-day concert 2 weeks prior that left him with 2 sick kids. Well, that was different. You were home. So he said, look, I'm having fun, and then he hung up on her. His friend asked if he wanted to take her home, and he said, nope, fuck it, give me another beer. He continued to get shit-faced, and the girl gave him a ride home sometime after midnight. So for 20 minutes in front of the kids, a huge fight about how I needed to put the family first, and that the family wouldn't return the favor for taking pictures, and how she had to tend to the kids, who were fine, by the way. So he kind of knows he should have shut this down, but that was before he became red-pilled, but it basically sets the stage that this guy is been beaten his entire marriage, like what, 15 years? So he's working through the prerequisites. He started No More Mr. Nice Guy. He's making some changes. He's necessary. He is finding, though, that his daughter now is misbehaving, and the wife's just sitting on her phone. Then the daughter decides she has to go to the bathroom again. He's like, go tell mom it's her turn. Wife looks up for the phone, says, you need to do it. And they have a little fight over this. Bold-faced defiance. And he doesn't know what to do. That she's basically refusing to be a mom. So, a couple thoughts before we get into the rest of this thing. I know it sounds like a disjointed mess, and if you've listened this far in to the episode, like, congratulations. Like, it's hard enough to read. There's no real point to it. It's a meandering mess. The theme is, though, the guy, whether he was raised that way or brainwashed or gaslit or whatever, into always deferring to his wife. His wife has a lot of anxiety. His wife is rather incompetent. She's rather lazy. And so the only tool she knew was to get angry at him. And he's so worried and so afraid of getting any woman in his life angry that he would constantly defer to her. He did that to the detriment of his health, the detriment of the health of his kids, the detriment of his own happiness, and ultimately the detriment of their marriage. Now for these guys, they used to call it a type 2 captain. It's a series of posts we have about the 3 different types of dysfunctional captains in marriages. And the type 2 was the one with the constantly complaining passenger. Nothing you ever do is right. And she knows if she complains loud enough, you'll do everything and she gets to do nothing. So really the only way out of that is you kind of have to learn to stop, like you have to cut the umbilical cord. And most of the frame that he has to develop is learning that he does not need her approval. He doesn't need her respect. He doesn't need to put up with her crap, but he doesn't need to make it an adversarial situation. Like, it's not his arch nemesis. It's not a scoreboard where they're trying to put up more points than the other person. It's just a nagging, shrew wife who's lazy. And then how you want to act, there's a ton of different ways to act around that, but just understanding that you're your own judge is the key part to getting there. And there's a lot of work. And he's starting. He's already starting with No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is going to be a huge boon for him to get rid of his nice guy behaviors. When I say no, I feel guilty, he's going to learn about basic adult-like assertiveness, which is going to be great. And then eventually he's going to get into like Rational Male, Practical Female Psychology, other books that I have on the sidebar series in here that will show you like why things are happening the way they are, the dynamics at play, and strategies you can use to thrive inside of them. So back to this. Jack looks through and he's like, well, the guy asked, like, what's a better way to deal with this? And he goes, hey, welcome to the red pill, dude. I would suggest you take a step back and try to get a broader perspective. The pattern is clear. I've transformed. I'm charming. I'm good looking and in shape, but bored. I need something to do next. Another challenge to conquer. Please give it to me. Any remote inconvenience your wife feels, you're her punching bag. She either dumps the responsibility on you, or if she has to do it herself, she dumps the blame on you for being in a situation where she has to do it herself. And he's like, yeah, if you had to pack a bag for your kids, she'd screech that you forgot 10 things. So she has to pack it herself, and then screech at you about other things. If she asks you to move a car seat, you say you haven't. She screeches, well, why haven't you done that yet? You lamely leave the room and move the car seat. So she hamsters herself that you're useless and cannot do anything right, and that she has to do everything around here, which is how she justifies why she's allowed to go on a 3-day concert with her friends, but you still can't spend a couple hours having a few drinks with yours. So I generally divide new married red pill guys into 2 camps. There are those whose marriages are operating with no frame. The wife may be exasperated, angry, desperate, but she was never particularly strong-willed enough to impose a frame of her own. Those women are just desperate for leadership. This is also type 1 captains, by the way. Generally, the husbands that swallow the pill, they're here within a month basically saying something like, I cut out video games, crap TV, started going to the gym, getting things done around the house, and now my wife is happier and we're having sex constantly. Hooray for them, but that's not your situation. You are in the other camp. There are those whose marriages are operating in their wife's frame. Guys like you, guys who have to deal with this shit. So he mentions a part of the story that I kind of glossed over, where tonight we're in the doctor's room waiting with my son. She's filling out paperwork. And like, why is she filling out paperwork? Why aren't you filling it out? Because your wife frame is that she handles things like this. She gets to fill out the paperwork or manage finances or plan vacations, and you get all the garbage dumpster duties that she deems you barely competent enough to do. This is not a winning dynamic. But the solution isn't just to wrest the forms from her and start filling them out yourself. Well, I mean, you should. But here's what'll happen in your example. The form will have a box that says something like the child's blood type, and you won't know what that is. So you're going to ask her, and then she, who's already pissed off that she's the only one on potty time duty, will immediately shit test you about how incompetent you are and that you don't even know your own son's blood type. So in terms of household management, you've succumbed to her frame, and it's a pretty bad one. It's okay. You can get out of it. Now, you can go bull in a china shop like you did at the wedding, declaring, I'm mad as hell and not going to take it anymore. Throw your shit in the ground, and when it comes to your wife challenging your boundaries, you should continue to do that. These will be the building blocks of your frame. In your frame, it's completely reasonable to spend a few hours with some longtime friends at a wedding, so damn it, you're going to spend a few hours with your longtime friends at a wedding. But I would recommend separating that approach from what I would call household management authority shit test, because leading and running a household comes down to competence. And in your wife's frame, you're pretty fucking incompetent. So you have to establish your own frame and your own competence, otherwise you're destined for a rocky couple months with your wife before the divorce. Your wife will hamster you're not just a useless husband, but an inconsiderate one, and that'll provide her a lot of food for her hamster. You need to extract yourself from your wife's frame, and you're already in the process of doing that. Then you need to dismantle hers, construct your own, and pull her in there. When it comes to household leadership and management, pure defiance just distracts yourself from her frame. It doesn't do anything else. You'll be back there in 3 months with a story like, I was doing the chores and the kids were being annoying, blah, 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 and the same thing you just heard here. Sure, sometimes it works, but it probably won't because your frame's not strong enough to withstand the 800-pound hamster that's going to be constantly trying to huff and puff and blow it all down. So I'm sure it's so tempting to modify all your behavior overnight and no longer take her shit because of how much resentment you're feeling right now. Now, don't ignore that resentment. Let yourself feel it, but don't dwell on it. Think about your marriage on a macro level. Imagine your ideal marriage and what your wife would be. Then when you imagine those scenarios, it's probably not you saying, go fuck yourself, bitch. As tempted as you are right now to say that, it's you just your wife acting affectionate, respectful, and appreciative. That's the goal, so that's your frame, eye on the prize. Now, if you can reach that goal, you're being methodical and strategic about it. That's a good thing. You've already been advised, read the 12 levels of dread. Notice the first 3 levels have nothing to do with your wife. It's about self-improvement, so improve. That should be your focus, not winning these micro authority battles with your wife when it comes to your kids. If your daughter's being a brat, deal with her. Those are not the shit tests that are going to make and break your frame. Next part. So yeah, it's a bit of a slog. You can see this one, but this guy's got a lot to break down. It's really one of those situations where he has to learn to be an adult, a man, a husband, and deal with a nagging bitch of a wife all at the same time. And it really is a mouthful. And this is why most guys just give up and they give you some line about the juice not being worth the squeeze. It's like, yeah, it may not be. But if you don't see the benefit in being a well put together guy, then I don't know what to tell you. You have a sparring partner, use it. Or don't. I don't know, it's no skin off my back one way or the other. Anyways, so one of the guys, he's been around for much longer than me, Stratos Autocrator. He has a great quote that says, leadership requires work, and from this work comes authority. So you're easily going to pass shit tests if you can demonstrate that you have other shit to do besides take your daughter to go to potty every 5 minutes. That could be identify stuff in the home you've been neglecting, get a hold of your household finances, get a long-term financial plan, find areas of the house that your wife is especially annoying about. Go and things that you don't want to handle, pay somebody else to deal with that. Get all your family documents organized, birth certificates, passports, wills, registrations. Don't worry about every micro shit test, especially when it comes to your kids. Put in the work, lead the family, and you'll get to delegate who has to deal with potty time. Now, you're going to get a lot of advice about lifting, about hobbies, about socializing with friends, self-improvement, and you're also going to get a lot of advice that just says, tell your wife she's a bitch to go fuck herself. And none of them are wrong. Your wife is a bitch, and she absolutely should go fuck herself, but my advice is geared towards a macro-oriented way of doing so. Keep your eye on the prize, and you'll avoid the pitfalls I think guys here have experienced, being too confrontational before they were remotely ready before they had any semblance of frame, and before they ended up being on the brink of divorce. And you can do this. We're rooting for you. Obviously, he didn't do this. It's fun, man, because like this is 7-8 years ago, and in the book that it's going to be coming out on Christmas 2022-ish, hopefully, on Frame, it's described like it took an entire book for me to go over just what he's talking about building Frame here, and as well as the Dread stuff. The entire Dread book is coming next. They were originally one book. They were way too big. The thing about Dread is it's like a three-pronged approach. There is the approach of learning to build attractive behaviors. That's pre-selection. That's understanding the role that anxiety plays with it, having options. There is the role of learning to not be taken for granted, which is a very important one, because most of the time, even you could be the hottest guy on earth, but if you're getting taken for granted, nobody's going to respect it. And then the third role is just general self-improvement, right? And those three things together compromise Dread. Frame, on the other hand, is more of a tetrahedron. There's like 4 steps to that. There is your physical, which is like taking care of yourself, learning to be more attractive, learning to be less unattractive, fitness, diet, all that sort of stuff. There is the intellectual stuff, and that's understanding the various red pill strategies, like how to handle a shit test, how to handle a fitness test, how to do leadership. Same things here. Like a lot of this looks like, and it's advice I normally give to guys too in my community, where it's like, yeah, start doing chores around the house. Do them to your standard and do them on your timeline. And they're like, well, isn't that the same issue of just doing chore play and your wife, like you're not doing it. You're not doing it to make your wife want to sleep with you. You're doing it to set a standard for yourself. And that standard is the work. That quote from earlier, leadership requires work. From that work requires, that's the work. And yeah, I get it. It's just doing dishes, it's taking kids and doing this thing. And it's all this extra work. And like, isn't there a wife here? Shouldn't she be doing this stuff? And she absolutely should. But if you can't establish that you're perfectly competent with or without her to run your family as you see fit, then it's very, very difficult to start barking orders and having expectations. Because they're like, who the fuck is this guy? Tell me how to do things. He doesn't even know the kid's blood type. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lot of work. And a lot of it's for your own sake too. Like the way I put it is like, pretend your wife is dead. Live your life the way you would live it. And you're going to find so many demons that you kind of ignore. Like one, sometimes guys let lifestyle creep up. The house is too big to clean. They have too many purchases. The debt's too much to handle. There's too much work. And then they realize, like, if the wife wasn't here, this is too much work for me to handle and have any amount of happiness in my own life. And so they learn to scale back their own life, move into a different place, sell the second car, all those extra extravagances they don't need. On top of that, at one point, they're going to be sitting there prepping the kids' lunches, washing the dishes, looking at an electric socket that needs to be changed, and look over and they see their wife in sweatpants eating bonbons, watching, Love is Blind on Netflix, and realizing, like, she doesn't provide any value to my life. And that's where the guy clicks. He stops being subservient to her. He stops putting up with her shit. He's not angry. He's not trying to find revenge. He just realizes, like, she doesn't provide me any value, and so she gets no value from me. And at that point, some guys leave their wives and like, if I can find a girl that's 10, 15 years younger than her, sleeps with me more, and is equally useless, then that's a step up. Or a lot of the wives get anxious, be like, geez, I think I'm getting left behind. They start stepping up their things. Everything is happy. Now, I could talk about this for hours, and when the audiobook comes out, I will be. But just realize, like, this is a very dense, complex, and deep subject. The stuff that's coming in this Midswatch episode is almost just like a teaser trailer, which is weird because I'm already like 20 minutes in. So just be aware, like, when people talk about the red pill, they don't know what they're talking. It's stuff like this. There's like serious work involved, and it's rewarding as hell. Like, I could give success stories till the cow comes home, or the cows come home, and I have on the various times on Red Morning. So do listen in, stick around, and you'll see everything you need to know. But on that note, I'll catch you guys later. Cheers.